Well, good morning, friends. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that it literally does not work. So let's get open for business here, and let's wake up the football gods here on this thirsty Thursday. It is Thursday. Oh my God. And today is a big day because, oh my God, today, friends, the combine. We're beginning the workouts today. Today we got tight ends, quarterbacks, wide receivers, and instead of it being during the middle of the day, it starts at 4 o'clock to 11 o'clock tonight. So that way it's kind of in prime time because the NFL realizes we are such football nerds, that we are so thirsty for football, that we will watch guys doing shuttle runs and working out. We just will. We are that thirsty for football. So we definitely will be keeping an eye on it. And the Cowboys yesterday ended up talking with a lot of tight ends. And so this might be a window into the soul of the Dallas Cowboys and what they may be looking at. The Cowboys are a team that truly likes to build through the draft and have had a really good draft history. They believe in their own players. They believe in homegrown talent, guys that they find on the cheaps, guys that have had an injury background, low-level draft picks, undrafted free agents. You can look at Terrence Steele. You can look at Tony Romo. You can look at quite a few places where the Cowboys have found players that other people haven't. But the question is, what players are we going to hold on to, and will the Cowboys look to supplement that through free agency? And this is where I have to call bullshit on Stephen Jones. He said yesterday on our approach to free agency in the offseason, we could obviously do some things that would allow us to keep most of our guys if we wanted to push it all out. But then we'd have a much bigger problem next year and the year after that. Okay. That would be true if you said that last year or the year before, when you were making, or the year before that, when you were making the decisions to say, let's pay DeMarcus Lawrence $90 million. Let's play Jalen Smith, $50 million. Let's pay Zeke Elliott, $18 million a year. You could have said that because you were looking at it before the NFL redid the CBA. And you could say that, last year after COVID, because you could say we don't know where it's going to be, where the world's going to be with it. The thing about it is, that line right there is a lie. It's true that, you are pushing the money out. But see, here's the thing. We used to talk a few years ago about the NFL being a $10 billion a year business. $10 billion right now is chump change in comparison to where this CBA is going to be. I want you to understand that right now, as we sit here, the money for the new CBA hasn't started kicking in yet. The NFL decided what the salary cap was going to be this year 6 months ago, before they even had the projections of where the revenue was actually going to be. The new money that's coming into the NFL, the gambling money, the new television contracts, all has yet to be added. And they haven't even finished making the television contracts. They have more games that will be international. To give you an example, Sunday Ticket, of course, is on DirecTV. This is the last year of DirecTV having the Sunday Ticket, which means it's being paid for on that old contract. The new contract, which between ESPN, although ESPN has not stepped up with enough money yet to even get into the conversation any longer, Amazon and Apple are both vying for Sunday Ticket. Some estimates have just the Sunday Ticket Understand, Sunday ticket is the 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock games. That's it. That's it. A lot for, the Thursday games, the Monday games, the Monday night game. I'm sorry, the Monday night game or the Sunday night games and things like that. Those other packages. That package is going to be in the neighborhood of about $7.5 billion. Who knows? The NFL may say, you know what? Both of you guys can have it. And end up being more. But let's say hypothetically it's at that $7.5 billion mark. The way the salary cap works is gross revenue, 52% to the owners, 48% to the players. If you take $7.5 billion divided by 32 teams, that's $235 billion for each team. You multiply that by 0.48, which is the percentage of the players. You get in the neighborhood of $115 million. That is the addition to the salary cap. That's more than half of what the cap is right now. So yes, in essence, you could say, yeah, if we go ahead and do that, we're mortgaging the future. And that would be true when you had normal years where the salary cap only went up about $5-10 million. But this salary cap is about to explode. There were early projections before COVID that by 2026, the salary cap would be around $470 million. And that was before we got the streaming players in there for DirecTV. That was before the television contracts tripled. So Stephen Jones isn't exactly truthful on that. We know that, there's certain type of people. There's some people that will go out and they will just spend lavishly. They don't care what the price is. I just want that. There are others that get off on knowing that they got you on the price. There's some customers I hate doing work for that no matter what price you give them, they're going to make sure that they work that price lower so they can feel like I got a bargain. I got the best of you. I got you to work for nothing. And that is Stephen Jones. Here's the reality. This is the Wild West now of the NFL, where you realize you can't just do it by drafting. You can't. You look at from the Eagles, they made trades. They brought in free agents. They supplemented the roster and the guys that they drafted to get over the hump. You can look at Kansas City. Lord knows Kansas City brought in free agents from Dallas on defense. They did the same thing. Supplementing the players that they drafted. They got the core group of people. We need to add people to that to get there. Tampa Bay, Lord knows, you saw the whole great migration to Tampa Bay with the free agents. The Rams. There is no better poster child for saying, get the veterans that can fit your system and go for it. So, hypothetically, even if we were to believe that Stephen Jones is correct, then saying that, we could keep players or go out for players in free agency and try and make a run, and then we'd have a bigger problem next year and the year after. Well, we've gone through this approach year after year after year, and guess what? What's the difference? We're not winning with your approach currently. We're not winning the Super Bowl with your approach. In fact, we're not winning more than one playoff game with your approach. So doing the same thing over and over and over again is the definition of insanity. You have to realize that what you're doing is not working and realize we got to come up with another plan to do this. Am I wrong? If you were New England and said that, I'd say, okay, because you got a track record of winning Super Bowls and getting to conference championships. you could say, I can give you the benefit of the doubt. But here, I don't see where you have that leeway. And hypothetically, let's say you decided to go all in this year and you were able to win a Super Bowl. I don't know that Cowboy fans would be mad about having a problem year or two after it. I think that you would end up being pretty happy that we could finally get that monkey off our back and stop hearing that we haven't won a Super Bowl in this century. So this is where I kind of have to call bullshit on that one, Stephen Jones. But we're going to end this with final word from NFL Network here about the Cowboys possibly moving on from Amari Cooper.
Cleaned up. Here's his head coach Mike McCarthy on how Dak Prescott is feeling.
He's back at it. He's been in the building. Actually, he was one of I think we had one of 8 players that had postseason surgery. So he had to clean up of his left shoulder. So it's something that needed to be done. So he's rehabbing that. But he's starting his process to get back into it.
All right, starting his process to get back into it. Now, I know we got a long way away before we really dive into off-season workouts, but what can you add on Dak's health at this point?
Yeah, well, it's really good news for Dak Prescott because, first of all, it's not on his throwing shoulder, right? That's always a good first step there. It's on his left shoulder. So from what I can gather, it's a very minor surgery. This isn't something that's going to keep him out and off the field. I actually recently just spoke to him at the NFL Honors Awards about the offseason, and he told me that he is looking forward to it because he's going to be healthy. And it's not going to be anything like it was last year, which we saw him, rehabbing that knee injury. So he said so much of that weighed on him during the season, just coming back and not being able to really focus last offseason on those small football fundamentals, all that quarterbacking stuff that he wants to just really zone in on is the way he said it. And you could just tell, Shay, from talking about it, he was excited just to be healthy. So this seems to be a really minor situation. Okay, well, that's some good news if you're a Cowboys fan. Speaking of the Cowboys, they have some big decisions to make coming up this offseason, particularly in their front office. Dallas is projected to be more than $21 million over the cap for the 2022 season. They have multiple starters set to hit free agency, including tight end Dalton Schultz and wide receivers Michael Gallup and Cedric Wilson. That could make their upcoming decision on Amari Cooper, well, probably a little bit difficult. So they're going to have some things here that they're going to have to consider, and things could get interesting because he is currently set to account for $22 million against the cap in 2022. But that number, well, it could drop to $6 million if they cut or trade him before March 20th. And so what should the Cowboys do? That is the question. Well, here's what Executive Vice President Stephen Jones had to say about Cooper's status on Monday. It's too early for me to address that yet. I mean, we're continuing to have conversations. A little bit ominous if you ask me. And so, Keyshawn, is Amari Cooper a Cowboy next season? Or does it make more sense to maybe move on from Cooper, considering how deep, if healthy, the Cowboys wide receiving core could be?
Here's what I would say. You mentioned deep and healthy, right? So you got 2 guys. You got Gallup, who's injured. You got Cedric Wilson coming off, who should be a free agent, so to speak. If I'm the Dallas Cowboys, I approach Amari Cooper and I say to him at a $22 million cap number, that number is a little too high for us. Let's bring that down. Let's incentivize some things. And if he agrees to that, then it works for us. And if not, let's try and trade him. If we can't trade him, then part ways. And if I'm Amari Cooper, I got the Cowboys right where I want them. I know I can play. I'm betting on myself, okay? Now I'm going to go to the Cowboys and say I'm not taking a penny less. And if they say, okay, then cut me because I know I can wind up with the Kansas City Chiefs, the Oakland Raiders again, or the Las Vegas Raiders, so to speak. I can wind up on the New Orleans Saints, a team that will still allow me to be me and pay me my money. So I really think the Cowboys are in an interesting situation here. This is why you hear Stephen Jones say, we're still working on things. It's a little too early, because they're trying to figure out what exactly to do.
I think the Cowboys can and should trade Amari Cooper, mainly because I think they're a team in 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends, than they are in 11 personnel, 1 back, 1 tight end. And I think you could trade Amari Cooper because I think outside of Dak Prescott, when it comes to their pass game, the most important person on their offense is Dalton Schultz, who's a free agent to be, their tight end. And if it comes down to Amari Cooper at his salary,
I don't know about that.
Schultz, you should make sure that you take that money that you might be able to recoup in trade value and sign Dalton Schultz. This guy has emerged as a big-time player. You see the statistics when Cowboys are in 12 personnel. They're the third best 12 personnel team in football behind the Ravens, which have such a unique offense, and the Patriots, who have two superstars in Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. I think that when you look at tape and watch this Cowboys pass game and you say, who is the receiver target that Dak Prescott trusts the most, that believes in the most, it's Dalton Schultz. And the numbers prove when Dak Prescott throws the ball to him, he performs at a level better than basically anybody in the league. Look at this. If you told everybody at home, hey, Dak Prescott to Dalton Schultz is better than Brady to Evans, you'd be like, what? Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp?
So I think skipping over Joe Burrow and T. Higgins as well.
Really good duos, but that's the best duo when it comes to those two connecting with each other. And that's why I think fundamentally, offensively, they're better with two tight ends on the field. And certainly keeping Dalton Schultz over Amari Cooper is more important for their offense.
But, Dan, you can do both. That's why you go to Amari Cooper.
Right.
And you try to figure out how to lessen that cap number so that he can be more affordable. He understands that he had somewhat of a down year. He's not foolish to it. But if you try to take him from schedule a base salary of $18 million to something like $10 million, $12 million, he's going to put up the deuces on you. I can promise you that.
But that's my thing, Key, is like, what is the number that you can get him to? I don't know if it's restructure
I bet you can get him to about $15.5 to $16 million because that's what he can get on the open market.
Yeah, and but that's not going to be enough money.
Yeah,
that's not going to be enough money for you to keep the tight end.
Right.
I think the tight end's more important. That's what I think for their offense. He's more important.
Well, especially if they have that combination. Okay, we've got something new here on NFL Live, and it's not quite pertaining to the NFL. Instead, it's pertaining to me.
Now, to Dan Orlowski's point, CeeDee Lamb had 79 receptions. Dalton Schultz had 78. So, and I can agree about 12 personnel. I've always been a 12 personnel fan out there. However, 12 personnel packages will actually be a hell of a lot better if you have CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper out there with it. I'm just sorry. You can't say that, just drop Amari Cooper, because part of the reason why Dalton Schultz is getting those catches and stuff is because they also have to worry about stopping Amari Cooper. Sometimes things that a player does not come out in the stats. And sometimes a player is a decoy. Do we want a $22 million decoy? Well, in the essence of, do you want other guys open? You could say, well, we don't want to pay a guy $22 million as a decoy. But then all of a sudden you notice that it's easier to cover CeeDee Lamb or Michael Gallup or Dalton Schultz because you don't have that threat. And this is where it's not just about one guy. And when you take one of these legs away, it's kind of like having a fire. When we were in Boy Scouts, we learned you have to have three things to have a fire. You have to have heat, you have to have fuel, you have to have oxygen. If you take any one of those three things away, you can't have a fire. Doesn't matter. You take one of those three things away, you cannot have a fire. And that's the thing about the Cowboys offense this past year. You took away the running game between the offensive line being porous and Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard having the injuries. So that ended up hurting the passing game. Now that you can take away Zeke Elliott, you don't have to put 8 men in the box, you can worry about double covering Amari Cooper. And so all of these things are relevant. And if you go through and say, we're going to take Amari Cooper, who I still believe is our best wide receiver, away, and not try to work something out where you can make it and push it down the road. And to believe me, you can push it down the road. The salary cap is not going to be an issue down the road. Trust me. What's going to happen is in the next couple of years, when we're looking at $20 million being what a wide receiver is being paid and $40 million for a quarterback, we will opine those days and say the receivers are $30 million and now the quarterbacks are $60 million, because the cap is going to keep going up. It is inflation in the NFL. So that's all I got to say about that. I need to get up out of here because I got to get down the road and get back, because we definitely want to check out the workouts of all of the prospects and see who the Dallas Cowboys might want to get. I'm Mark Holmes, and, well, you know how we roll. Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report.
You did one hell of a job, and the only thing else I got to say is, how about this, Cowboys? Yeah!